So I'm out walking again, just taking a hike and getting some fresh air, exercising, and going to talk a little astrology again and talk about the moon, because the moon moves around the astrological wheel the quickest. So it does change things up a little bit. However, the vibe kind of stays the same because of the outer planets that move slowly. And as for the other personal planets, it does change up the vibe somewhat. However, doing moon predictions, there's slight changes. So anyways, let me pause. It's a nice view. Some steep mountains. But anyways, the moon entered Gemini, and it's at the later degrees of Gemini. It's getting ready to change signs. It's at 24 degrees, representing a 24-hour repetitive cycle. And that's just the Gemini effect, because it's a constant mutable air quality of repeat repetitiveness. And that can be mentally exhausting, which leads me to my next point. It is nonetheless sextiling over to Venus and Chiron. And also in Aries, there's Saturn, Neptune, and the Sun still. And Saturn in Aries, which Saturn represents to slow down and process in order to maintain a repetitive rhythm, talking about Gemini. However, the energy of Saturn is really slow. So that's why things can be quite exhausting, because it's kind of like pushing a cart sideways, so to say. And you just have to stay steadfast, which Uranus in fixed Earth, the sign of Taurus, just is representing kind of innovative things that require using the mental constructs to create different revenues of streamlining resources. And you can just get inventive with the sign of Gemini, especially when it's in the moon, because it deals with the emotions, emotional stability, what it is to be nurtured and feel comforted with the 24-hour repetitive cycle of day, week, and month. So it just gives you the intuition and insight to adjust and feel in an intuitive sense the Lunarian quality to manifest and maintain a certain rhythm, because the moon is all about cyclic processes. And the sign of Gemini, which is mutable air, once again, is being able to multitask and juggle around a shuffle, so to say, in regards to the mental constraints and adjusting to anything that is mentally challenging. So mutable air, Gemini, in regards to the moon, can create crafty ways of addressing any emotional challenges and any mentally problematic blockages that prevent one from moving forward. So anyways, again, I'm going to talk about Saturn, the Sun, and Neptune in Aries, which Neptune can slow things down too because it makes things unclear. So having the lunarian quality of the moon in Gemini gives a little more craftiness and clarity so that there can be the establishment of intuitive ideas to navigate through the unfamiliarity of the unknown, so to say. And also, Venus and Chiron, that is nonetheless sextiling the moon in Gemini, is showing the analysis that you can feel nurtured without acquiring too much of the necessities of creature comforts. So with Venus, it's the lower octave of Jupiter, and it being close to Chiron in the sign of Aries, is basically needing to kind of recharge, is what I'm picking up on, because it's not going to take a lot to recharge, because Chiron is allowing for the frugalness to take place with Venus, and nonetheless sextiling over to the moon in Gemini. So it's all about just kind of eliminating a lot of the unnecessary wants and desires. And it's basically the bare minimum with Venus, the lower octave of materialistic needs or pleasures. So it's being able to budget and work with less, and allowing for the intuitive craftiness of the mental stimulation coming in from the moon in Gemini in order to utilize this energy that is still persistent in Aries, which is trying to initiate and push through. However, Saturn, being the brakes and slowing things down a bit, is creating a lot of pressure regarding the ebb and flow. And then Neptune is causing a lot of, not necessarily confusion, but it is blowing things out of proportion in a sense where there cannot be a really ground basis to make this energy of Saturn in Aries concrete. So it's like having the endurance and stamina of Saturn, however, needing to slow down in Aries, and it's basically just being charged right now in the sign of Aries. However, with Neptune, it is creating this energy that is causing a lot of, not necessarily delusion, but it's causing a lot of uncertainty, so that the energy is the energy is being scattered, so to say. And that has to do with everything going on in Pisces. And also, oh, there's a lizard. Let me pause for a second. There's a lot of lizards around here, but some beautiful rocks. And again, the view is nice. But yes, the energy is really scattered with Neptune, and Saturn's trying to recharge in the sign of Aries and kind of figure out a way intuitively with Gemini to browse through and see how to reserve energy for a later time to initiate, maintaining its rhythm, which is basically seems stationary. So let me see what else I can put the emphasis on. I mean, Pluto's still in Aquarius, and that's just a transformative energy that is just being nuclearized, and that is constant. However, thinking about more of how just the quality of the moon in Gemini is creating new energy for this short time. Well, it could create some more desire to be social because of the need to have a voice and speak truth from the core. However, let me pause. Beautiful scene again. Yes. And my mind is constantly on getting exercise. So being out here for a walk, the moon in Gemini is allowing me to brainstorm, and it triggers new ideas, and it recharges me mentally. But again, let me pause. And some pretty flowers and a lot of bushes. It's like the canyon in Chaparral. Steep mountains, big boulders. Lizards and birds a lot. Those are the kinds of specimens that are apparent in this environment. And I'm gonna pause, and I'm going to, the sunset's really pretty. It's very pretty, and just gonna continue to walk up this steep hill. Just had dinner, so getting my walk in. and just trying to browse the astrological wheel in my mind and see what else I can speak of, because this is just moon talk, because I don't only walk the walk, but I talk the talk, because I exist the exist, because I'm existent and persistent, because I'm real and I'm alive. So what else could be going on in the astrological wheel? It's really pretty yellow flowers. And then, don't know what this flower or plant is, but it's really nice. And I don't know what else to speak of yet, but when something comes to me, I will definitely speak about it. But I'm going to walk down this way because nothing's giving me any kind of influence up that way. So don't really care. But anyways, there's no planets in retrograde, just still in that shadow effect, which feels apparent. And yeah, with Mercury coming out of its shadow, it's just allowing the sign of Gemini, where the moon is, to be more insightful and understand how it's reflecting is able to be emphasized, and how to just connect the links, because everything is a formula. And yes, with the sun going on in Aries and the spring equinox, there is this desire to push through and get fresh air and forge new ideas in order to create some stimulation. So there's still a lot going on in Aries, and there's still the slow moving planet of Uranus in fixed Earth at the tail end of the sign of Taurus. So it's going to be a refreshing energy when Taurus goes into the sign of Gemini, because speaking of the moon in Gemini, with Uranus moving into the sign of Gemini, mutable air, it will remove some of the fixity of the stagnant quality of Taurus, which is fixed Earth, because Uranus wants to be free and liberated from the stagnancy and the stubbornness quality of fixed Earth, Taurus. because Taurus is all about revenue, and fixed earth, Taurus, it can be a bit stingy, a stingy quality. And with the moon in Gemini and then Uranus moving into the sign of Gemini, it's creating new innovative ways to receive resources that can be utilized to be free and not so stuck regarding the need for resources outside oneself to be able to participate in various activities that, you know, Venus and Chiron close together want to participate in order to gain some comfort and clarity. So with Chiron, it is also a slow-moving energy and is needing a lot of attention. So whenever the energy gets freed up from the fixity of fixed earth with Uranus, there can be a lot more insight and more power to move more freely through the so-called community and long-distance travel. So again, this is just some astrological talk with the moon in Gemini and in regards to all of the other constant energies of the outer planet, which moves slow. I mean, Pluto that entered Aquarius is at the beginning stages, so whatever's being culminized there, it's still too early for any kind of transparency. And then with Neptune, it just entered Aries, and it is too early to have any transparency in what it's culminating. And the good thing about Uranus and Taurus is it's in a end phase with its recital through the sign of Taurus, fixed earth. So it's going to enter Gemini, and it's going to kind of initiate more motivation, so to say. So that is the astrological talk for this evening. And until next time, this is just astrology time regarding the moon cycle. And take care. Blessed be.